welcome to Commander Central, episode 127. Today we're covering Patreon supporter Cohen's Yarok, the Desecrated Landfall deck. I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
Chris, welcome back.
Indeed.
You're finally feeling better?
I am feeling better, although this whole ear infection that I went through is kind of messing with my equilibrium. So when I'm staring at these cards right now, it's kind of all starting to blur together. So be patient with me.
Okay, just don't pass out on me halfway through the show because, as you folks probably noticed, it's just Chris and I.
It is.
No Dana today. Dana has to get ready to go to a family reunion. So we just recorded our preview card show, which you guys will hear on Thursday. He's there for that one, but he had to duck out. So Chris and I are running this deck tech on our own.
Woo! Cheers from the background. Yeah.
Hopefully we don't burn the ship to the floor.
Don't you mean like sink this ship or something?
Oh, no, we'll probably still light it on fire, then sink it.
Sounds like a plan.
So, Chris, you haven't really been around the shop lately to play EDH, but you have been playing Modern, right?
Yeah, way too much Modern.
My
brain's like fried on it right now.
Because you're getting ready for Magic Fest Minneapolis.
Yes, I'm getting ready for GP Minneapolis, that's for sure.
I knew you were going to say that. I've been doing it, too, in your absence. When we've been talking about our trips, Dana will say Magic Fest. I'm like, you mean GP?
Yep.
So you think you're getting well prepared?
I think so.
Awesome.
One of my teammates, Parker, is on the same exact deck that I am. So we've been really bouncing ideas back and forth as to how we're going to play our decks for that weekend.
Did you have to make any alters from the Mythic Championship that just happened a couple weeks ago?
Not really. Both of the decks that we're playing both made top 8 between the Mythic Championship and
the SCG
event. But we've both been on this deck since it first came out. So
that's awesome, and we'll keep that under wraps. So in case you run into some listeners out there, they already know what you're on.
Oh, I'm playing Urzethopter Sword. I don't care. Come at me, brah.
Okay, so just don't translate that to EDH, please. Maybe.
So Esper. It'd be really hard to do that.
You'd pretty much just run Shroom and put Urza
in there. I
there.
forgot about Shroom. I haven't seen one of those cards in a while, so I forgot it existed.
Well, you've been playing Modern. I've been playing Commander, getting ready for GP Vegas. See, I got that for you. And we've been doing this for Vegas Rotisserie Draft, I think I've told you about.
Yep.
You've probably seen it on Twitter.
You copped out of the mono green that we discussed.
I did cop out of the mono green because the first pick of the entire draft, someone spooked us all with an Atraxa.
So I still would have picked mono green. I would have been like, just stop me.
Yeah. I'm now going Abzan, which I've said a few times, but we're about halfway through the draft. We're only on pick like 25 of 70.
Well, I think out of all the decks, I've been paying attention to everyone's deck. Yours looks the strongest because you're taking a no-holds-barred approach and just saying, I'm taking this card, be ready for it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the compliment. I'm just going straight Abzan tokens, and, I missed out on the Grave Pact or the Dictates, but in the end, I'm just prepared to say, you can wrath the board, you can make me sacrifice stuff. I'm still going to pump out bodies faster than anybody else on this table.
I agree. I don't know what's going on with those CCO homies over there, though, but some of their picks have got me just, scratching my head.
I think we're all starting to get that way with those guys. It might be the moose droppings. I don't know. But, yeah, so everybody follow that on Twitter, hashtag Vegas Rotisserie. See everybody's picks. It's Dana and I from this show. We got Zach and Ryan from Commander Social, formerly Brothers War, and Ryan and Brando from CCO, F them. And then a couple listeners, Joe Hoffman and Dan Krause, are participating as well.
I hear that Dan's deck is the best. He is the best.
He
deserves all the...
He's the fundraising king, I'll say that much.
That's what he was saying, something like that.
Yeah, and of course this is all for proceeds going to Extra Life for Dell's Children's Hospital down in Austin, Texas. Dan has been raising a lot of money for those sick kids, and we all have been doing our part, and we're glad we can help out in some way. If you want to reach out to us on social media, how would you do that, Chris?
Well, it's very, very simple.
Is it?
You open up your iPhone. If you don't have an iPhone, then that's blasphemy, and we're no longer friends.
We just lost 17,000 listeners.
It's an awesome argument. I hate to get sidetracked on you, but I don't know how many people have iPhones and how many people have Androids on my team, and we always argue about it. Like, oh, my phone's not working. I'm like, well, if you had an iPhone, and they're like, oh, no, screw that iPhone, blah, 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 blah.
I can make my icons go anywhere. I don't care. My phone works.
So anyways, pull out your mobile device, your computer, tablet, whatever, go and log on to the Twitter birds. And you can reach us by looking up at CMDR Central. You can find us on Facebook by searching CMDR Central. You can find us on YouTube searching CMDR Central. And you can find us online at cmdrcentral.com.
And of course, you can head over to flipsidegaming.com and use promo code CMDR in all caps to get 10% off all $10 orders or more. Obviously, these Commander Precons are coming out. You can pre-order the entire set. Our code works for that. Along with any cards you might have missed from Modern Horizons, Core 2020, all the fun stuff.
Yeah, the big card I've seen working at the store is everyone's looking for Yawgmoth, and we have none.
It's popular. It's super popular in EDH, and it's a fun card.
Yeah, I pulled one out of my 3 boxes, and I'm just sitting on it. Not sure where I'm going to put it yet.
There you go. You can also find us over at patreon.com by searching CMDR Central. Our new reward tiers kicked off last week, so the changes we made were moving that Decks You Play episode like this to the $20 level, but we throw in the playmat right away. And our new rewards allow you to come on the show and be a guest, and we throw in a playmat and a t-shirt. So go check those out if you are able or willing to support us. It goes a long way to buying me pants, gets us out to events to meet all of you folk, and next year Chris will be tagging along when he can, way more often.
Indeed.
Can't wait.
I can't wait neither.
You've never flown before.
I haven't. I got to clear that with my doctor first.
I think you'll be okay.
We'll find out. Well, I suppose you'll be okay.
If I can fly, you can fly.
Yeah, I
it's
suppose.
Pressurized. If the plane loses pressure, I'm finding a life. I'm just jumping. Parachuting jumping. I'll hold my breath till I go splat.
So what about Teespring?
Oh, Teespring. That's right. You can head over to teespring.com and look up CMDR Central to find all of our t-shirt, our apparel.
So Max made a deal with me, and this is a bet we have going on. If I have more people wearing my shirts in 2 months, I get to pie Max in the face, and we will record it.
I don't remember making this bet, so was I intoxicated?
Oh, you didn't make this bet. I just made it for you right now.
Oh, jeez. Okay, so you're already losing. I'm going to tell you that right now.
I am losing hard. I'm trying every which way possible.
What do I get if I win?
Just the bragging rights, I guess.
That's not fair. Why do you get something and I just get bragging rights?
Because it would look cool. Because then you wear your scumbag shirt, and then I can pie you, and then everyone would be like, yeah, take that, scumbag. And
okay, well, I'm going to come back next week with my rebuttal on what I get if I win.
Sounds good.
Before we move on, we have a couple of our contest winners from last month to announce. So for Patreon, we were giving away a bundle of Core Set 2020, and the winner of that is Tim Rack. So Tim, reach out to us on Patreon, and we'll grab your address and get that shipped out to you. So congratulations. For our Twitter giveaway, we were giving away that oversized two-headed dragon, and the winner of that is Nick Bundy, and it's at Nick S.E. Bundy. So congrats on that. We'll DM you to get that your address and get that shipped out to you. For our new contest this month, for Patreon, we have a altered Lord Windgrace Planeswalker card we're giving away. So we'll get pictures on Patreon of that. And as long as you support us or start to support us by the end of August, you'll be entered to win that card. For Twitter this month, we are giving away a signed copy of the card Great Defender from Legends, and it is signed by Mark Poole. So all you got to do is retweet and follow us when you see that tweet, and you'll get entered to win that card. So, should we get into this Yarok landfall deck?
Indeed.
So, like usual, we always ask a few questions to our listeners about the deck. So the first question is always, what's your meta like? Cohen says, most of the time we play in a small group of people who own a lot of decks. The power level of most of the decks is around 8. All of the decks are powered up and tuned, but we don't run any cards like Mana Crypt or Fast Mana like that to make them go over the top. One person does run a Maelstrom Wanderer deck who can consistently cast it on turn 4, but that's about the fastest deck in the meta. Most of the tuned decks lead to grindy games with tons of fun and interaction during them.
Sounds like I need your meta.
Right?
That's what I'm thinking. So, second question we reached out to Cohen for was, what is the goal of the deck? Making landfall matter. I want to win with Scapeshift and Obnixilis, Retreat, or Dread Presence in play. Risen Reef paired up with Zendikre's Royal works fine as well. I've got a mana bond for that, so if I draw my deck, I can put all the lands on the field after doing a combo like that. The deck evolved last 2 weeks from my Gitrog monster to this. I really like the idea of running the same kind of deck with extra value, but isn't adding that much right now. But it gives me the commander. That counts for me. And then little squiggly face line thingies. I have no clue what those things ever mean when people post them up there like that.
Oh, I think it was an emoji that didn't copy over properly.
Okay, emoji. So we're going to say that he gave us a smiley face emoji.
Yeah.
Or a tongue sticking out emoji, because those are like my two favorites. So
I'm a fan of the poop emoji.
It is chocolate ice cream. Get it right. Or pudding.
No, it's poop. Is that another argument you and your team have?
Yes.
Okay. The next question was, what are the weaknesses or areas of the deck we should focus on? So Cohen says this is his first draft. I think its weakness is that the deck can't function without mana, or its land drops, or even having landfall stuff. Closing out games will be pretty hard as well if I don't have a finisher in play. So I need to tinker about on that for some time. You guys have the first or probably draft 1.5 of the deck in front of you, so I would really want to know how to fine-tune it. Where can I make some changes in the list? What kind of card or ramp, draw, removal do I have to add or remove? What do I do early game to make sure I do not die before turn 7? He thinks his land base is good and is really focused right now. He's curious if we can find an upgrade for it. He's not running ABR duels, just don't have the funds for him.
I don't think many of us do, my friend.
Nope.
So budget restrictions. So now we're talking budget restrictions of a single card or for all the upgrades in general.
Correct.
So around $200 on total budget. Don't mind if we go over it, but does not want to include the cards like Max said earlier, where his meta doesn't play Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, Grim Monolith, all that fun stuff. Just because he has the balanced group of EDH players. So, I am with you 100%. No Mana Crypt. You should get rid of the Soul Ring. I mean, get rid of all that fast mana.
Fair enough. Okay, so before we dive deep into the deck, we'll just do some quick stats on it. This deck has an average CMC of 3.1. That's pretty great for a...
It's not bad for a 5-mana commander.
Right. I mean, I like to be in the below 3.5 range for this type of deck, or most of my decks, honestly. Most of the drops, the cards are in the 3-drop spot, and I think that's really all the general statistics we need to really cover right now. So
Agreed.
Should we start with the lands?
Sure, let's start with the land base.
Or should we cover Yarok? Because I guess people may not know what this does, even though it just came out what seems like forever ago, but it was like 2 weeks.
Was it only 2 weeks ago?
2 or 3 weeks ago, I feel like.
Oh, boy.
So Yarok the Desecrated is a legendary creature elemental horror for 2 and Sultai. It has a 3/5 body. It has Death Touch and Lifelink. Well, you could stop right there. I'm happy with that. But no, it says, if a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time.
Oh, so it's Panharmonicon.
On a body. For all permanents.
Makes sense.
That's fun.
No. Does not sound very fun.
Sounds like my kind of deck.
Why isn't this like Teamer or something so I can play Valkut and just really go ham?
That's probably why it's not Teamer. Because we have Lord Windgrace.
Well, this could have been... There, just make it Jund and it could have been the real Lord Windgrace card.
Okay. So, let's start with the land count. He is running 39 lands.
Indeed. So let me scroll down here to it. We have 9, 12, 15 basic lands, and the rest are non-basics, which actually I really like. The big thing I've been talking with a lot of people, especially at the store, is the lack of basics lately. People have been really greedy. Not only in EDH, but even going into Modern, people have been getting super greedy with their land bases.
You don't have to say people. Dana's not here.
Oh, I'd call him out if he was here. You know me.
I do it too. No, I agree. I really like that number of basics. I try to run 12 to 15 in all my decks, whether it's 2, 3, or 4 colors, 5 colors even. Any lands you really want to focus on right here, besides the basics?
Not entirely. I mean, it's got your basic set. It looks like it has all the shock lands. You got a couple of fast lands, some pain lands, all that fun stuff. Now, Lotus Field is one that I'm curious about. Now, for those of you who don't know, Lotus Field was just printed. Let me see if I can find it now. So, Lotus Field is a land that comes into play as hexproof. Enters the battlefield tapped. When it enters the battlefield, you sacrifice 2 lands, and then you add 3 mana of any one color. This card kind of catches me off guard in this deck, seeing how it's a 3-color deck.
Okay. Mainly because it just creates 3 of one color?
Just of one color.
Would you rather, I want to make sure he's not already, would you rather just run the Tri-land? Because that's your next best option.
Yeah, because I don't foresee someone like strip mining this card per se, because they're going to look at it and be like, okay, you're in 3 colors. If I strip mine this, so you're off 3 mana, I guess, but it's only 1 color, so I'm not really taking you off of everything.
So I actually agree with what you're saying in a 3-color deck, but I want to point out that the majority of the cards in this deck are green.
That is true. And I did notice that too as I was looking through everything.
There are quite a few X spells as well, so I mean that's just feeding the X spells in the deck.
Still, I'm still not sold on it. It's not quite a Lotus Veil, whereas Lotus Veil comes into play untapped, so then you're ready to use it right away. So.
Right, you're still netting 1 the turn it comes in because you still have to sacrifice the 2. You're going to produce 3. You're netting 1 overall, unless you already tap those lands,
But here's the thing, and I'm not sure. Don't quote me on this, Twitter birds and all you people, because it's
your first episode back, man. Don't make that plea.
I'm just like out of left field, but I do believe that Lotus Veil requires lands to be untapped when you sack them.
It does,
and Lotus Field does not. So that could be an upside as the same. You tap out, cast something, and then jam Lotus Field into the battlefield. So.
Yeah, totally. I'm interested in your thoughts on having Dark Depths in this deck.
I like Dark Depths. The thing I don't like about Dark Depths, especially in Commander, is the amount of exiled removal that there is in the format. And Dark Depths kind of takes you need to go Dark Depths Thespian stage, I think it is, in order to do the combo base. And it's only a 20/20 that's swinging. So it's not like it's anything fancy. You can't one-shot somebody like you can Legacy or another format.
Right.
But it is a nice inclusion because you could still just catch people off guard.
Yeah, you totally can. It's a landfall deck. It's going to trigger a bunch of stuff later on in the deck. I like it. It's also a mana sink, just if you don't have anything else to do, remove that counter.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like it. I would like to note that all his basics are snow-covered. They
are.
So there might be that new... What's the new enchantment that makes Merit Lage's? Merit Lage's Slumber.
Yes.
That could be something that might be considered, as a finisher as well. You're running 15. That's how many snow permanents you need, I believe, to trigger that.
I think it's 10.
It is 10 because Dana got 1 shy of it this week and we stopped.
And whenever a snow permanent comes into play, you get to scry. I don't know if I would quite consider that. You would definitely need more snow permanents to do that.
Right. It's different when you're running a monocolored deck, mono blue, and you have 26 basics in that.
Yep. The one card that I'm absolutely loving for this land base is Field of the Dead. This is a lands matter deck. Field of the Dead reads, when it comes into play, or any other land comes into play, if you control, I do believe, 7 or more lands of different names, you shoot out a 2/2 zombie.
That is 100% correct.
That card is phenomenal in a deck like this where you're just going to be like, oh, land here, land here, land here, trigger this, get some bodies out there. Let's all have a fun game.
Sure, we'll define that fun as sure.
They're just 2/2s, I mean.
That is exactly correct. And you know what? I think he's packing, enough grave hate. There's a scavenger ground, so that's great to hear. He has the new canopy lands where they can be. Field of Ruin as well for some land destruction lands. I think this is an overall great... He's right, this is a very tight mana base. I don't see much changing need to be done at all except for that Lotus Field that you kind of spoke on.
Yep, that's the only one. I mean, I could consider Maze of Ith or Glacial Chasm maybe getting pulled for something different, but that's all about the tweaking and having to play it a few times and see how those cards actually line up and how they feel.
I mean, I get Glacial Chasm because it stalls him so people can't hit him. It is a land matter deck. He can sacrifice it. He can bring it back with Crucible or Excavator. Just as it delays the game, but I think it just helps him get to the finish to win the game, maybe even faster than he's already doing it.
Okay, I could get behind that.
So let's move on to the next section, which would be artifacts.
Artifacts.
So we have Birthing Pod, Crucible Worlds, Panharmonicon, and your favorite, Soul Ring.
Soul Ring. You know, I'm going to talk about Soul Ring for a second.
Let's do that.
Soul Ring is a beautiful card. And as I go through this deck more and more and keep looking at everything, Soul Ring's nice because there's a lot of colorless pips in this stuff. But I think everyone's been prioritizing Soul Ring so much that I think I've fallen out of love with it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely falls into that staple category or auto-include category.
Yes, and I mean, I'm going to go off on a tangent here about that new Signet thing that they printed too.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, they're turning these cards, like a Soul Ring is a mandatory card, everyone thinks, and everything. So now they printed another one like that. And I don't like how cards like that in EDH are forcing people to have to put them in every deck. I like to see variants and weird shenanigans that people can pull out of stuff.
I think that's where the self-limitations come in. You know, Dana does it. His Sigarda deck doesn't run a single artifact.
Yep.
Glissa is all creatures have to have Death Touch are the equivalent of. You know, I think it's great for new players. It's great for the people who maybe play EDH once a month, unlike us who play weekly or a couple times a week, or for 5 straight days in Vegas or whatever, you know. But I agree with you. It's a crutch. I mean, I still use it. I'll flat out say I use it. I put it in almost all of my decks.
I do too.
But I think there's, you know, this commander already has colorless pips in his cost, so it makes sense. You know, you get the Sultai down on here's Soul Ring, you can cast your commander on turn 4. Cool.
Yes.
The commanders that maybe don't have colorless pips in their casting cost, then it's just your commander tax.
Yep.
What about Birthing Pod?
Birthing Pod's very interesting in this deck. So there's a lot of creatures in here, but not like a bunch of them.
There are 25. There are 25 creatures.
Now, Birthing Pod is cute. I mean, yeah, you can pop off Yarok, go for, a 6-drop or something like that?
Yeah, it's the CMC +1.
Yeah, which there are a few of them, like, let's take Rampaging Ballast, for instance. That's a 6-drop. First one I ran into.
Yep.
So you pop that off, get Rampaging Ballast, then do a Scapeshift shenanigans, you just go ham.
Right.
So I understand that it's a nice little tutor source. Other than that, I'm not really sold on it.
I actually 100% agree with you. When I think of Birthing Pod, you need to know your chain. There aren't many 1-drop creatures in this deck. So if you sack a token that gets made off of Field of the Dead, if you already have played your Elvish Reclaimer, you're going to fail to find.
Yep.
And then there's only a few 2-drop creatures in this deck. Same thing. You need to know, okay, if I sacrifice this 2-drop creature that maybe is helping me because it says landfall on it, am I going to get something better that's advanced me to my win con? And I don't think the creature suite right now is at that point.
Oh, I agree with that 100%.
I think if he wanted to move off the landfall idea, you could make this a Birthing Pod deck.
Yep.
But I don't think he wants to do that. That turns into I think that pushes it past that power of 8 level.
Yeah. The cute thing about Birthing Pod, though, is a lot of these creatures do have ETB effects that aren't like win cons. So if you do have Yarok out and you are able to, like, if you know your cards in your deck,
you
could Birthing Pod into something that gives you double triggers and then can set you up for later in the game.
Okay. Question. Would you rather run something like Conjurer's Closet over this?
No.
No? You like the fact that you have to sacrifice something, go get something else, double the triggers.
Yep.
Where Yarok and Conjurer's Closet, you just blink it out the end of the turn, you still get those double triggers, and you keep the thing you want.
I think Conjurer's Closet puts too much of a target on you compared to Birthing Pod, because people look at Birthing Pod and they're like, okay, it's a Birthing Pod, and they don't actually do the math in their head. Like, okay, so I'm playing against we're going to take this as just a green-black deck because blue doesn't quite have as many good ETBs for this effect. So what am I really worried about? So if you pop something off at 3 mana, so what's the 4 mana slot going to be? Am I going to have to worry about a Gonti? Am I going to have to worry about something else along those lines? Or do I just not worry about it and leave it alone? Whereas Conjurer's Closet, you see it all happening, and you know you have to get rid of Conjurer's Closet.
I mean, we'll use my Brago deck, for example. If I have Conjurer's Closet out and I have 3 valid targets, you don't take out the targets, you take out the closet.
Yes.
Do you have any suggestions for artifacts? I mean, besides Soul Ring, there's no signets, there's no talismans.
I would like to see a couple of signets to even out the mana, but we are playing green. This is where I run into conundrums when I build green decks is what is the good artifact ramp compared to spellcasting ramp? And that's really where it hits home. Like, which one do you prefer to play?
Okay. Question, you kind of talked about Soul Ring. Why signets over talismans?
Because you get hit for 1 damage.
Okay, but it's EDH. You have 40 life. You have... The argument can be...
We're not all Dana who likes to like go down into bolt range.
True, but we can also make the argument that if your turn 2 is only a signet, you can't do anything with that signet if you just have land signet. If you play land talisman and you have like a vampiric tutor in your hand, you could still cast that vampiric tutor with that talisman and take 2 life. You know what I mean?
I understand that.
So
I'm going to.
You're a huge Signet fan, so I've been waiting for you to
really
come
like
back
signets.
and have this discussion with you.
I do really like signets, even though I've had it backfire on me before. I just like signets because I don't like taking the pain. It's the biggest thing in the decks is I would rather be able to know, okay, so because I like to play the pain lands as well.
Yep.
So between pain lands and having the talismans, that's double pain. But I want to be able to know that when my opponent attacks, I have life to spare.
Okay.
Instead of being like, okay, I'm getting attacked, plus I'm paining myself. You know, it all adds up in the long run.
Does knowing that Yarok has lifelink change that opinion for this deck?
If he was a 5/5, maybe.
Okay, that's fair. If he was, or even maybe 4 power, getting 4 life back would probably be better.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're good with artifacts. Where should we move on to, Chris?
Let's go into... Why don't we just talk about the creatures, since I had already started talking about them?
Awesome. So there are 25 creatures. We'll do a quick run-through of them, and then we'll talk about specific ones. So there's Acidic Slime. ETBs, destroys something. Avenger Zendikar makes a bunch of tokens. We have Azusa. We have Coiling Oracle, Dread Presence, Elvish Reclaimer, Eternal Witness, Lotus Cobra, Muldrifter, Nissa Vastwood Seer, Obnixilis the Fallen, Oracle of Moldiah, Rampaging Balos, Ramanap Excavator, Ravenous Chupacabra, Reclamation Sage, Risen Reef, Royal Elemental, Sakura Tribe Elder, Spring Bloom Druid, Tatiova Bathentic Druid, Tireless Tracker, Titania Protector of Argoth, Wayward Swordtooth, and World Shaper, and also stuck in with the enchantments is Courser of Krufix. So that's 26 creatures, I guess, total, if you count Courser.
Yep.
Architect puts it with the enchantments.
Architect.
It's not helping. It's not helping your equilibrium right now.
All the guys in Slack, I saw you guys huge talk about Architect and deck stats, and I was like, I'm not getting in on this one. So 26 creatures. I like the overall amount. Let's see. So we're gonna go over a couple of them.
Perfect.
So let's talk about Dread Presence, which he had brought up in his overview when we asked him the questions about it. So Dread Presence is a 3/3 creature for 4, a nightmare. Whenever a swamp enters the battlefield under your control, choose one. You draw a card and you lose 1 life, or Dread Presence deals 2 damage to any target and you gain 2 life. So now, as he was saying, you know, your Scape Shift, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's an Urborg in this deck, so it turns all your lands into swamps, which is nice little cute shenanigans in here. I see what you're doing. So that is one of the win cons. I like it. I wish it was more of a harder thing to remove, because this is like boltable. I know no one plays Lightning Bolt in Commander, but I will change everyone's mind someday down the road.
I mean, it's a creature. It dies to a Wrath. It can be, it can be bolted, like you said, because it's a 3/3.
Yep.
It can be lignified.
Yeah, get rid of its abilities.
What I do like about Dread Presence, though, is the fact that it's not, when it enters the battlefield, you pick one and you're stuck with it. You get to pick every time a land hits.
Yes.
That's very unique with maybe options we've seen in the past with Magic. Is typically we've gone through the phase, like the retreats you could choose. Then we went to this phase of where when the creature enters the battlefield or the permanent, you have to pick one of the 2 options and you're stuck with it. And now they're moving back to like, no, when the land enters, you get to choose.
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty much, it just should say landfall, and then something happens.
Well, those text boxes are just getting smaller and smaller every year.
Apparently. The one thing, though, that I do like about this card is that it's not really heavy threat. Like, if someone looks over and they see that you don't have an Urborg in play, or no one else has an Urborg in play, it might be a card that's going to fly underneath the radar.
Right, especially because without Urborg, he's only running 3 swamps.
Well, plus his pain or his
and his shocks.
Yep.
So 5. That's not a lot.
No,
so
it
I
is
agree.
not.
That is a very low threatening card early game. But when that Urborg hits and you can go Urborg into Scapeshift, boom, done.
Yep, gain a bunch of life. Then maybe you can play the talismans, I guess. The next one I want to talk about is Obnixilis, the Fallen, which most people who are Commander players should know this card. So 3 colorless, 2 black, landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you may have target player lose 3 life. If you do, put 3 +1/+1 counters on Obnixilis, the Fallen. And Obnixilis is a 3/3 for 5.
With no evasion.
No evasion, which catches me off guard because I do believe all the other ones have flying, don't they?
The other legendary creature, Obnix, I believe, does have flying. Because that's the Search Your Library one.
Yep, and then one of the Planeswalker versions spits out 5/5 flyers.
Yep.
The other Planeswalker version is just awesome. So that's my personal opinion.
Exactly.
This is another good win con card.
I'm still confused. I guess confused is not right. So all these creatures have an ETB effect of some sort, or something like Elvish Reclaimer, which is a 1/2 for 1. It gets +2/+2 as long as there are 3 or more land cards in your graveyard. So, and you can pay 2, tap them, sacrifice a land, search your library for a land, put it on the battlefield tap. So there's some land ramp.
Yep.
You can go get your Urborg to trigger your Dread Presence, but he's not running fetches.
That is true.
Like, that, to me, that feels like if you play that on turn 1, if someone doesn't kill that by turn 3, or...
Well, I take that back. There is 1 fetch in the deck.
Okay.
Swept Teeth.
You are right. And I guess Crystal Vein can be sacrificed to create some mana.
Yep.
But
no broken shenanigans.
no broken shenanigans where you drop this, you fetch, you bring something else in. I think this is an interesting card. I don't know what I would do with it early game, but late game, I can see it being really powerful. I wish it got bigger more consistently. Like,
Yes.
I wish it didn't stop at +2/+2. That would be really cool, but it would also be super broken.
It would be awesome.
It would be awesome. Are there any other like ETB creatures you would expect to see in this deck
Yes, I actually have.
that would fit the landfall theme?
I have 1 for sure. It's called Caustic Crawler. It's a 4/3 insect for 5 mana, 3 colorless, 2 black pips. Landfall. Whenever the land enters the battlefield under your control, you may have target creature get -1/-1 until end of turn.
That sounds good.
It does, especially if you have multiple ways of dropping, like explorations, stuff like that, where you can play multiple lands. You could just kill off a creature that's really annoying to you.
One that I'm kind of surprised to see, it doesn't really say landfall, but it does interact with lands, would be Sylvan Safekeeper. That's the elf that you can sacrifice a land, which would help with the Elvish Reclaimer, and give something Shroud.
Yeah, give your Yarok Shroud, because Yarok is very nice to keep around.
Yes, and on that note, there are no boots, there are no greaves. They are in the maybe board, so I'm sure that's something that come in and out as needed, but I think I always like having that little bit of safety net of knowing that I have a pair of Swiftfoot boots, or I have a pair of Lightning Greaves in my deck, so especially when this deck really revolves around the commander.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could probably get through without him being on the battlefield, but without him, he just makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, between him and Panharmonicon, the 2 of them. I mean, if you get both of them out with Dread Presence or Obnixilis, you should be able to just win the game if you have Scapeshift in hand.
Should be in the key.
Yep. So, decks like this, I really wish that they would unban Primeval Titan, because I don't think that he's broken. But everyone argues that with me. But I might play Primetime and Modern, so that might be why I don't think that he's broken.
You can save that argument for a show we'll probably do in September about our opinion on the ban list and maybe making our own ban list, because for our mailbag episode, we had a lot of ban list questions.
We did.
And I think we're just going to make a full show out of those.
Okay.
Spoiler alert, listeners.
This is going to be awesome. I have so many opinions, and I'm finally glad I can say them and not worry about, backlash.
I mean, maybe.
That's okay. I just,
Blame me.
people go, they may say something to, the Commander Central Twitter, but no one's ever, contacted me on my Twitter yet, so I'm just whatever.
The other one I'm actually really surprised is not in here is Sire of Stagnation. So that's the 6 mana Eldrazi from Battle for Zendikar. It's 4 blue and a black for a 5/7, so big beefy body. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your opponent's control, that player exiles the top 2 cards of his or her library, and you draw 2 cards. So it's drawing you cards, it's getting you closer to your escape shift, it's getting you closer to that stuff, and it's maybe making your opponents hold up a little. Like, do I really need to play a land on turn 7 because I might have just tutored something to the top of my library? Who knows?
Yeah, I can see that. The other one that I was thinking about, since you're bringing up Eldrazi, was Oblivion Sower. The ability to double trigger with Yarok or with Panharmonicon to hit the other people, and you get landfall triggers out of it because you get to play all those lands that get exiled.
Oh, you do?
Yep.
That's fun. Okay, so yeah, I like Oblivion Sower. I think Sire is a great include as well. Are there any other specific creatures you might be missing? Is there, the landfall theme, kind of shrinks our pool of cards a little bit because the idea would be just go general ETB good stuff.
Yes.
But I like the fact that it's thematic, it's landfall. He's running stuff like Royal and Elemental, which is awesome. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may gain control of target creature for as long as you control Royal Elemental.
Yep. Another
reason why Sylvan Safekeeper, our Greaves, our Boots would be great, because this is something, if you can't get Yarok out again, protect this guy.
And just start taking
everything.
I agree.
I'm really happy we got a lot of these pseudo landfall stuff between War of the Spark and Core 20, because like Risen Reef is an elemental kind of trigger, but when it or another elemental enters the battlefield under your control, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land, put it onto the battlefield. That seems really good. And then it also says if you don't, you draw it.
Yes.
Cool. I'll do that all day long, in my opinion. I think we're good with creatures. Unless you have any others you want to speak to?
Nothing that I want to bring up. I just think that it needs to be a little bit more focused onto the landfall. Like put in some other cards that deal with landfall, like a Hedron Crab or something like that. Just because then people know basically what you're doing.
Yeah.
But then you got to force them to stop you to do it.
Exactly. He mentioned Gitrog in his answers, and we spoke about this off air, but I think that should be in this deck.
It would be a nice inclusion. It helps with your Elvish Reclaimer, allows you to draw cards, which is always nice. But then again, the way that I'm thinking about it is if he pulled off of Gitrog for Yarok and he didn't add Gitrog in here, there is a reason.
Maybe Gitrog's that thing that puts it over the edge.
It very well could be.
I mean, I in my mind space, I'm kind of thinking, like you kind of just said about Royal Elemental, it's something his opponents have to deal with.
Yes.
I mean, I don't see any obvious Gitrog combos in this deck if it were in here anyways, so I don't think it's that bad. You're not playing any, wait, pause, let me make sure. Okay, Life from the Loam is in this deck, but still.
It's still not broken.
No, there's no easy way to create infinite mana between it and everything else. So I think it's a good, threatening inclusion in the deck. Infinite mana is so much fun.
I've seen how you can create infinite mana with Gitrog. You're over here, oh yeah, no one knows this, but haha, Scumbags Unite stuff over here.
And to that point, though, there is no Cabal Coffers in this deck.
That is true. Which I don't think this deck really needs Cabal Coffers. As you pointed out earlier, majority of the pips are green.
Yep.
So, I mean, the point of sacrificing a land for coffers that's going to create only black could actually hinder you in the long run.
For sure. And it doesn't tap for mana.
No, it does not.
In a 3-color deck, having that in your opening hand and no swamps on the battlefield if you don't have Urborg, I can see why it's not in this deck.
Yep.
Most people like to say, I'm running Urborg, put Cabal in there, but they don't think past that sometimes.
The only reason that I would do that is if I was playing more of a heavy black deck and I had more cards such as Torment to Hailfire, stuff like that where I want the big mana to actually be useful for something.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's move over to the enchantments. And I think we're going to save the instants and sorceries for last here. So enchantments, he has 9. There's Burgeoning, Courser, which we spoke about in the creatures, Exploration, Guardian Project, Mana Bond, Retreat to Hagra, Song of the Dryads, Squandered Resources, and Zendikar's Royal. So I think we should first talk about Mana Bond since he brought it up in his answers. So Mana Bond is a 1 mana enchantment from Exodus? Is that the bridge?
I think so.
Hey, Max wins. During your discard phase, you may choose to put all land cards from your hand into play. If you do, discard the rest of your hand. So, I mean, that's a bunch of landfall triggers, which could be very powerful. I mean, that closes out the game with Ob Nixilis. That could steal everything with Royal Elemental.
It very well could.
Rampage and Ballast. You have a token army now. Besides Mana Bond, do you see anything else that should be in here or maybe shouldn't be in here?
Enchantment base. You know, I looked hard into the enchantments for landfall triggers, and he actually has all of them that I would include as well. Zendikar's Royal spits out 2/2s. Retreat lets you, I do believe, draw and lose a life or something like that, or you ping for a life. Everything I like in here. Guardian Project kind of catches me off guard a little bit.
So when a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it doesn't have the same name as another creature you control, or a creature card in your graveyard, draw a card.
Is it draw a card? I thought it was explore.
Draw a card.
Oh, never mind. I was thinking of the other one that explores.
You're thinking of Path of Discovery?
Yes.
The one that puts a +1/+1 counter on it?
Yep. So this one is actually pretty good.
Right.
I take back everything I said.
Woohoo!
As I said, I'm not in the right frame of mind today for some reason.
That's fair.
No, everything else I really like in here, your exploration, your burgeoning, all that fun stuff, especially when you're playing, what is he playing, 39 lands in here? So the ability to just spit out the lands repeatedly is really, really nice.
Yeah. The only one that I could kind of come up with would be something like Polluted Bonds. It's similar to Sire's Stagnation. When your opponents play a land, they lose 2 life and you gain 2 life. So it's a thing that has to be dealt with.
Yep.
And then on top of it, it's just kind of inching you ahead of everybody because you need to play lands to play Magic.
Yeah, and it sticks to the landfall matter.
Right.
You know, the land theme.
It's a two-way theme almost versus just all about you. Now you're telling your opponent's cool, if you want to play lands, you're going to get punished.
Agreed.
It's not something like Zozu.
Or Ankh of Mishra.
Or Ankh of Mishra, but it is still, I think it's a fair card.
I would agree with that too. It's 5 mana, isn't it, for Polluted Bonds?
3 black.
Yep.
You know, I'm really kind of surprised not to see like Rhystic Study, because that's just a generically good card. So I like that he's rechained by not playing it.
Rhystic Study is another card that gets. I love the card. It is a wonderful card. The thing that I don't like about it is the constant reminders that you have to remind everybody.
It's annoying.
Yes, and the big thing about it is that because people, and I'm not, pointing fingers at anyone or trying to get lump groups of people together, but a lot of people try to cheat that system where it's like, I'm just going to play a card, and if you don't remember it, you don't get to draw the card. When I play, I say, no, I'm not going to pay for it. You can just draw.
Yeah.
To make the game more fair so we don't have to sit there and someone goes, trigger, 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 and then you get triggered and get really mad.
Yep, I think our meta is really good about that. When it comes to Rhystic Study, Mystic Remora, Smothering Tide.
Yes.
But when you're out in the wild, you got to be kind of heavy on that trigger because you don't know, you're playing with strangers or people you maybe only met once or twice. But I agree, it's the annoyance more than anything that makes people not want to run that
might
card.
be why it's not in here too, is because of just the annoyance of it.
And, he did mention he plays with a small group of the same people. So, I mean, maybe they just don't want to deal with it.
Oh, I would agree 100%. If that's how your meta plays, man, I'm with you.
The final one, so Zendikar's Royal. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a 2/2 elemental creature token onto the battlefield. That's going to make tokens, but there's kind of a token sub-theme, I guess, in this deck. You got this, Rampage and Balos, you have the Field of the Dead. Is it enough, though?
Yes, because if Yarok's out, it triggers twice.
Oh, duh. Look at this. I've done this for, 126 episodes?
Yes, I think it does quite a bit because, granted, when you do go over the list of creatures, not a lot of them are like powerhouses. They're all about their abilities. A few of them are powerhouses, but overall, if you can get something like that online, then you have the creature, backing you to go through for lethal for a kill.
And it's protection for Yarok, more blockers.
Yep.
Okay, so I think this enchantment package is great. Splendid Squandered Resources is always fun. Sacrifice a land, add a mana. Add to your mana pool 1 mana of any type that Sacrifice a Land could produce. Played as an instant. Yep. I like this because you can sacrifice colorless lands.
You can.
So that's always fun. And then it just feels more stuff you're going to do later.
Yep. Sets up for Splendid Reclamation or whatever that is, and that brings everything back. So.
Or World Shaper. Sacrificing a World Shaper to get all your lands back.
Yep. So I'm going to backtrack to creatures because you just said World Shaper. Another really good Eldrazi would be World Breaker. Simple fact, ETBs destroys an artifact, an enchantment, or a land. But when it dies, when it's in the graveyard, you can play 2 generic and 1 colorless, sacrifice a land, bring it back from your graveyard to your hand.
Okay.
For a 5/7 with reach.
That almost sounds better than Acidic Slime. That is Acidic Slime. Destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land.
On a cast. Not even on an ETB.
Yep. I mean, it's a bigger body. It doesn't have Death Touch, but that bonus of it dying and being able to bring it back all the time sounds great.
But now here we're going to go into the ETB factor because this deck is meant for ETBs, not cast triggers.
True.
I was thinking more along the lines of the lands type of deck. Because it plays for the lands.
Okay. So let's move over to instants. There are 7 of them. We have Assassin's Trophy, Beast Within, Crop Rotation, Growth Spiral, Harrow, Mystical Tutor, and Realms Uncharted. That last one has me kind of interested.
I like Realms Uncharted, just for the simple fact you get to go for any lands.
Yep. So for those who don't know, it's an instant for 2 and a green. Search your library for 4 land cards with different names and reveal them. An opponent chooses 2 of those cards, put the chosen cards into your graveyard and the rest into your hand. Then shuffle your library.
Which is really good. I mean, you get 2 lands for 3 mana. Yes, they don't come into play, but it's any land. And I actually think this is better than Tempt for Discovery.
Oh, for sure.
So for 1 less mana, at instant speed, guaranteed 2 lands. But then you got to play the risk of, okay, what are people going to see through my shenanigans? And I'm going to reveal Urborg, Dark Depths, Field of Ruin, and Field of the Dead or something. Like, how are they going to split this up?
Right. I mean, do you kind of like play around it and say 2 utility lands, 3 utility lands, and a basic? So you at least hopefully you get a color you need, maybe.
Yeah.
I do like it. It's kind of like a factor fiction for lands. It's interesting, and I would like to hear how it plays, because I've never seen it played in our shop.
I think it's a phenomenal card, honestly, especially in a lands matter deck, because you have so many silver bullets you can go for.
Right.
And it turns into a political card, too, because then you can go for, okay, I got Bajuka Bog, Field of Ruin, and whatever else, and be like, okay, so you look at the person, because I do believe it reads an opponent, so I guess it doesn't really matter which opponent does
We'll
choose.
check it quick.
So I'm curious how that wording would be for commander purposes, because in 1v1, obviously you only have 1 opponent. So if you target an opponent, then you can sweet talk them and be like, hey, that guy over there playing Muldrotha, is getting a little out of control with that graveyard, so how about you give me the Bajuka Bog and I can take care of it.
Well, it's similar to Factor Fiction, because Factor Fiction doesn't read target either, so it's one of those, like, I'm going to Realms Uncharted, hey, Chris, make the decision, but since it's a multiplayer game, you can say, okay, guys, what should I do?
Yeah.
Or, okay, people.
Yeah.
I do. I think it's a cool card, and I just want to hear back on how it plays. Mystical Tutor gets instants or sorceries, so that's a way to go get your Scape Shift. Yeah. No counter magic.
I don't think I play counter magic in a deck like this. Honestly, the deck is built around doing something else. There's no reason really to play the counter magic.
Okay.
If I did play any sort of counter magic, it'd have to be something that has heavy upside for me. Whether it be the counter target spell, you draw a card during next upkeep.
Arcane Denial.
Yep, they draw 2. Something like that where it's actually giving me a bonus on top of getting rid of the spell.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. Something like Arcane Denial, or even just a Swan Song.
Yep, something
that stops the Wrath. Something that stops that Council's Judgment or that Lignify from coming down that could ruin your plan.
Agreed.
But otherwise, the rest are all pretty much either kill spells with Beast Within and Assassin's Trophy, or crop rotation and growth spiral and harrow, which are all go ramp and or sacrifice a land, go get the land you need.
And of course, Harrow's the full art version on here. I'm trying to remember. I think Harrow's only basic lands.
I will pull it up right now.
I could be wrong on that.
Harrow says, and as an additional cost to cast this spell, which is 2 and a green, sacrifice a land, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards and put them onto the battlefield. So you lose a land to gain 2, you net 1.
Yep, I'm not sold on Harrow because of the fact that it is only basics. And in a deck like this, you're running so many, bullet lands, as I said earlier, that you want to be able to go for the ones that you want over basics.
Yeah.
Whereas your cultivates, that kind of stuff, go for your basics already. So why not put in something as such as crop rotation, which is in here, but anything else that actually goes for any land that you would need.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I do understand it fits the landfall theme. I would almost rather either go up the mana curve and run that new one from War of the Spark that's 1 black, black, green that destroys something and you get a basic land, or just play another type of removal spell.
What is that? Pier's Whim?
Pier's Whim, that's sorcery speed, but something like Crossing Grip.
Yeah, you could do Crossing Grip.
Just get rid of artifacts and enchantments, and that split second might come in handy. I think it's a little bit removal light for my playstyle preference, so that's what probably I would do. I would cut Harrow and just go for like a Crossing Grip, a Declamor, and Unravel the Aether.
Yes.
Something like that. Finally, we're on sorceries, where the bulk of this deck is really going to take place.
Yep.
So we have Cultivate, Demonic Tutor, Farseek, Finale of Devastation, Green Sun Zenith, Harmonize, Kadama's Reach, Life from the Loam, Nature's Lore, Regrowth, Scapeshift, Skyshroud Claim, Splendid Reclamation, and Toxic Deluge.
As well as Into the North, which you skipped.
Oh, I did. I apologize. Architect moved it down.
Right?
So that's essentially all green spells and 2 black spells.
It is.
That's a lot.
It is. So, the big thing I notice here in the sorcery speed department is the lack of removal spells.
There are no board wipes except for Toxic Deluge.
Yes. Now, I understand you probably don't want to wipe yourself, and maybe your meta overall doesn't play a whole lot of board wipes. I've played against groups of people who don't know what removal is.
We've done it at our local store. We've done it on the road. We've done it at random people's houses where it's like, cool, here's a Wrath of God. Oh, what is that?
Yep.
Here's another one,
Which I can understand. I mean, sometimes it's fun to play like that, but in order to do anything, you kind of need those effects. Now, with your deck being so basic onto Yarok, maybe you don't want that. Maybe you want more of a Ingaruk's Wake or something like that destroys everyone else's stuff but leaves yours alone.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Ingaruk's Wake are, you know what? There's not a lot of blue card draw in this deck.
No.
So maybe something like Decree of Pain. It's higher on the mana curve, but you're going to be ramping faster than the rest of your pod. Cast Decree of Pain, you kill a bunch of stuff, you draw a bunch of cards.
Yep.
And then you discard your lands and you get them all back with Scapeshift or Splendid Wreck or something like that.
Yes. Everything else I really, really like. There might be too many ramp spells in here, I think. This is just me being personal with it. Between everything that you have, I think you're going to play so many cards that are going for lands or doing stuff with lands that you're not really getting the versatility that you need, and you're going to end up blowing all your hand out.
Yeah.
Which then you're going into top deck mode, which is actually really hard. And the big thing I'm saying about the reason for this is in a singleton format, whereas if you're playing with the many different cards, once you blow your hand out and you don't have that extra card draw, you're just kind of SOL.
Oh, for sure, yeah. This is a deck where you do not want to be top decking.
Yep, and it's not going to be 100% consistent because I've played a Max's Dramoka deck where my opening hand is like 12 freaking ramp spells, and I'm like, awesome, I can play Dramoka on turn 2, and then I go, oh, but I'm not going to do anything else the rest of the game.
Right. So it's definitely a playstyle situation where you got to figure out how fast you should be playing.
Yep.
Yeah, all the ramp that I would typically want is in here. I think I would like to see Pier's Whim.
Yes, removal spell
It's
plus
a removal, plus it goes get any land you want, and it comes in tapped. I've been becoming a huge fan of the one from Hour of Devastation.
Hour of Promise.
Hour of Promise. 5 mana, go get any 2 lands you want. If you control some deserts, make a zombie.
Yeah, and the desert portion doesn't really matter unless
No.
you want to play more deserts in the deck.
Right, and really the ones you want to play are pain lands, and you don't want to do that.
Yep.
So, I mean, it still gets any 2 lands, so it'll go get your anything you want, which is great, in my opinion. But yeah, it's board wipe light, and card draw light.
Yes. And, I mean, maybe card draw is not a big deal. I mean, yes, there are quite a few cards in here that allow you to do card draw aspect. But I would still like a couple of them that just straight up are draw cards.
Yeah. Finale of Devastation and Green Sun Zenith. So let's start with Green Sun Zenith. Typically, when people play this, worst case scenario, you're going to go get your Dryad Arbor.
Yeah.
What would you go get, since there's not a Dryad Arbor in this deck? What would you use this for?
Honestly, my first target out of everything of his creature base is probably going to be Tireless Tracker. For the simple fact of let's set up landfall and let's set up card draw. That aspect right there would just be huge.
Oh, for sure.
Or you could go Tatiova if you're playing if your opening hands like Green Sun Zenith and a whole bunch of ramp spells, just like, oh, guess what? We're going to put Tatiova onto the field and get a whole bunch of life and a whole bunch of cards out of it.
Get up to that 6 mana with Green Sun Zenith and go get Tatiova and then start drawing cards, gaining life.
Yep.
I totally agree with that. There's a Maul Drifter in this deck. You could go get that. I think Green Sun Zenith is actually more dependent on making sure Yarok is in play. Is the ideal situation. Get Yarok out, go get something that's going to double the triggers.
Double the triggers, yep. It's a nice tutor source. That's mainly what I consider that card. I don't consider it like a win card. It's more of a, let's tutor something to start my engine up. It's very similar to when I played Ural and I was playing the green 1 mana instant speed Worldly Tutor. It was to set up my engine for card draw.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of that, Worldly Tutor could be an addition because then you could go for those cards too.
Yep. The downside, similar to Mystical Tutor, is it's going to take your draw. So you need a way to draw that card right away, or you just set up your next turn.
Yep. Which I still think playing, if you have that in your opening hand and on at end of turn 2 you do that to put out Tireless Tracker on turn 3, I think that's still a phenomenal play.
Yeah, for sure. So now let's talk about Finale of Devastation. This card has made a ton of impact since coming out in War of the Spark. It's probably the most played finale out of all 5 of them.
In Commander, yes.
Yeah, in Commander. Let's talk. We're strictly talking about Commander right now, Chris. We can talk Modern and Standard later, because that's probably the black one.
The red one.
Really?
Yeah, because you get to...
Oh, double your spell.
Yeah, you get to cast the spells out of your graveyard.
Double lightning bolts!
And then you're like, oh, now here comes my Phoenixes, and they start beating your face. Or
okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
In Commander, this one wins.
In the future, check out our Commander Central Modern podcast.
Commander Modern Central.
No, this card is phenomenal, especially in a lands matter deck where you're going to have a lot of mana to pump into this. It would be wonderful.
I mean, early game, this could just end it.
It very well could.
I mean, you go get something, you pump the 10 mana into it, then all the creatures you control, all those tokens you've been making now get +X, where X was that 10. That's just a flat-out overrun, if not more.
I do like the versatility of graveyard or deck.
Yes, that is so nice. I like that a lot.
Good card.
And then obviously Scape Shift, sacrifice a bunch of lands, go get more lands. Trigger a bunch of stuff, win the game.
Yep.
And then Splendid Wreck is, I just sacrificed everything to squandered resources. I'm going to get them all back now.
Yeah, it's a good way to set up infinite mana.
It is.
Especially if you play a wonderful card that is... I always forget the name of this stinking card. So 6 mana. Return X cards from your graveyard with different CMCs.
Oh, Seasons Past.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that card.
It's an infinite loop.
Oh, dang, it is.
Because it goes back into your deck, squandered resources. Then if you have like a retreat or something like that, where you can draw a card, you can make infinite mana like that.
So the blue retreat, if this was in the deck, lets you scry. The blue retreat lets you either tap a creature or untap a creature, and then the other option is scry 1 for landfall.
Okay, so then Which one was it? One of the creatures did that where you could draw a card and lose.
Tatiovo draws you a card when a land
or
enters
Dread Presence does.
Yep. Yeah, that's just infinite. You are right. There is an infinite mana source in this deck.
There isn't but he doesn't have.
It's a lot of pieces, though. It's not like boom, boom, and I'm done on turn 2.
Mm-hmm. Which then nothing's really getting played into it because you're not playing any of your cheater cards, as Dana would say.
So, this deck really revolves around the sorcery spot, in my opinion. Besides the creatures, this is the next most important.
This is your turn deck.
So I didn't bring this up when we were talking about lands, but my one inclusion I would like to see in the land slot would be Boseiju, who shelters all. Because you can pay 2 life
to give it uncounterable.
Give the instant or sorcery uncounterable. If this is, and especially because his meta is extremely interactive.
Yep.
Whether that's counter magic, removal, whatever, being able to make sure you get that scape shift off or you get that splendid wreck off might be the linchpin you need to win the game. And at 2 life, when you have a commander that has lifelink, you have ways to gain life in the deck, I think you're going to be fine. And it's another landfall trigger. I think I would almost rather run that over Lotus Field if I had to cut a land.
I would agree with that.
It creates a colorless mana, but all your sorceries have colorless pips in them. It makes your Finale of Devastation uncounterable. Awesome. Sure, Scumbags Unite. Yay! No? You done? Is that all you got? You're shaking your head?
I'm just shaking my head. That's all I can do.
Okay. So, any other final thoughts on this deck here, Chris?
My final thoughts would have to be to up the removal count a little bit.
Whether targeted or mass?
Yep. Now, I'm not saying, like, hardcore. Like, you got Assassin's Trophy. You could play Maelstrom Pulse in here, stuff like that. That's still low curve. You can target stuff out. And then up the card draw a little bit because you want to get your engine going. And I just have a feeling looking at this, and it reminds me a lot of your Dramoka deck, where you're going to have these opening hands that
look awesome.
Are just awesome, but you have no way of actually getting the cards back into your hand.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, especially how the deck is right now. The fact that he has blue, I agree with you. You need more sustained, consistent card draw, whether it's the Mystic Remora that's in his maybe board, or a Rhystic Study, even though it's annoying, or even just a search for Azcanta.
Yeah, search for Azcanta because it's another land.
You can flip it. It's another land. Does it trigger an ETB?
I don't think so.
No, because it's a transform.
Yep, it's not an exile and then return to the battlefield.
But it lets you filter your deck out to go find Scape Shift.
Yep, it allows you to dig. It does wonders.
Yeah. Even something like a Mind Stone for ramp, if you wanted to cut Soul Ring for Mind Stone or something like that.
Something that you can sack off later.
Yep.
The big inclusion that I found odd that I didn't see in here was a Sylvan Library. And that could just be a choice.
Yep. And I believe Cohen lives overseas. Okay. So it might be an availability thing as well.
It very well could be.
But I can't speak to that.
Yep. Because Sylvan Library just sets you up to, we talked about how you have some good extra life gain, so you can just start taking cards and setting up for later. I mean, just anything that's going to get you ahead a little bit in the card draw department, I think is going to really help this deck out.
Yeah, for sure. I think this deck is, my final thoughts would be this deck is awesome. I agree with what you said. It just needs more consistent card draw. And I like that it's heavy green.
I do too.
I was expecting to see more like heavy black and blue because that's where a lot of the ETB effects are, but the landfall stuff comes in green. So it makes sense, but seeing an entire sorcery slot of green and black cards, I was not expecting at all. And, that's awesome. And I think that's all I really have to say. So, Cohen, thank you so much for supporting us and sending us your deck list. We had a lot of fun going over it. Chris, welcome back after some long intermission. And Dana, you will be back, I'm sure, on Thursday.
You know what we didn't do this episode? And it really makes me upset. We didn't fire Dana.
Well, we're still recording.
No, it doesn't work that way. We had to do it in the beginning when we're all like doing our introductions. And we're like, oh, yeah. And Dana got fired this week, so.
Well, we will be back on Thursday with our Commander 2019 preview card show.
Sure.
I think so. I mean, we just recorded it, so yes, we'll be back.
Wouldn't it be Monday, though, to be back?
No, this show is actually the Monday show.
Oh, what is going on here?
Exactly, because... Anarchy, well, because we got preview cards free from Wizards, our cards have to come out on Thursday, so we had to do a little flip-flop.
Okay, true.
So, listeners, thank you for making it this long. You are not crazy. It is actually Monday.
Okay. Wow.
So, our podcast theme is Retro Future Dirty by Kevin MacLeod, licensed via Creative Commons. Our show is edited by the amazing Ked Peddle. You can find him on Twitter at LOAD3R. You can find myself on Twitter at CMDRCentral_Max. You can find Chris at YSquishy1. And you can see how Dana's doing in the unemployment line at Dana Roach. And again, we'll be back on Thursday with our C19 preview card show. Woo woo!